Hey guys, so in this video what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through this polynomials review sheet. So if there's any that you didn't get or didn't quite understand, you can just kind of flip ahead to that part in the video. So the first one, the first question here, it says we're going to simplify the following polynomials using required operations. So all that means, when you guys see the word simplify, is that means you're going to multiply or FOIL anything out and then add your like terms together. Okay, so let's start at this first one. We're going to have negative 4x times each one of these terms. So let's multiply those all out. Okay, so that one's done. Again, we just multiplied each one of those. Multiply, multiply, multiply. For number 2, we have now 2 terms in each set of these brackets, so we're going to have to use our FOIL method for this, and then after we're going to multiply the 3 in. So leave the 3 out front, and then do all of this foiling. So we're going to have x times 2x, x times a 3, negative 5 times 2x, and negative 5 times 3. Okay, from there we can group these two like terms here in the middle, plus 3x and a negative 10x. Okay, and then lastly we can multiply the 3 into each one of these. Okay, so that one's done. Okay, the next one we have here, there's a lot more multiplying going on, so we got to multiply into the brackets, multiply this into the brackets, and then this into the brackets. Okay, and then now that we have that, we want to put together any of our like terms. So if I see a 5xy, I'm going to look for something else that has a xy, like this 4xy. And also, if they change up the order and they have a yx, technically it's the same thing. I could just change the order of this multiplication, and then it would be xy. So let's write all of those down beside each other. Okay, so with this one, I wrote it, but I changed the order of the multiplication. So all that we have left now is we have this 20x, that can go together with this 2x, and then we have the 5y. Okay, so now we can group these 3 together and these 2 together. So we have 5x plus 4x, that's 9x, take away a 1xy, right? There's like a hidden 1 here. So that is going to give me 8xy. Then we have 20x, or negative 20x plus 2x, that's just negative 18x. And then the plus 5y at the end. The next one, whenever you guys see a exponent up top here, instead of, you might think we have to apply the exponent of 2 to each one of these, what we do is the exponent of 2 means write it out twice. It means 2x plus 1 times 2x plus 1. Okay, so we have that. And then this second part, I am going to do part of the multiplication with that. So we're going to FOIL all of this here. Okay, so once we have that, now we can do the foiling in this one. So we're going to have 2x times 2x, 2x times 1, 1 times 2x, and 1 times 1. These two terms in the second bracket I'm just going to put together. Okay, so once we have that, now these two terms can go together, and I can multiply the 4 into each one of these terms. Just be careful on these ones. If you have negative 4 times a negative 2, that's going to give you a positive 8x. Same idea with this last one. Negative times negative gives us positive. Okay, now the very last thing, I can put my x squared terms together. I can put my x terms together, and then my constant terms together. And there's our final answer. Okay, the next question is going to deal with factoring the following polynomials completely. So first step you always want to do is you want to try to pull out any common terms that all of the terms have. So if they all have, say, a factor of 2 or all have an x, we want to pull that out from each and every term. Okay, so in this case I can pull out a 2 from each term, and I can pull an x out from each term. So let's do that. Okay, so I took a factor of 2x out of each one of these, so they all have one less factor of 2, and we can see they all have one less factor of x. And that is as far as you can go with factoring that one. That is our final answer. I can see they all have a factor of 5, an x, and a y. So let's pull that out. Okay, so we're left with that. And again with this one, you can't pull anything more out of all three terms. And it doesn't really look like that product sum style, which we're going to get into in a bit. So that as far as you can factor that one, that's our answer. Alright, the next one, now if we look at number 3, I can see that both of these terms have a 2y plus 3. Okay, so if they both have that, I can pull that out from both of them. So let's pull out a 2y plus 3. And then what we're left with, imagine that we just pulled this out, it's no longer there. We're left with a 5x and a minus 2. So our leftovers are a 5x minus 2. And that's your final answer. Now looking at number 4, what we have with this one is there's 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. Whenever you have 4 terms, what you're going to try to do is you're going to factor it by grouping. So you're going to look at the first 2 as a group, and then you're going to look at the second 2 as a group, and you're going to try to pull something out from each of those groups. Now what we said in class was we wanted to make sure that they followed a good order. So the number 9 to the number 15, it goes small to big. And then with the 12 and the 20, this also goes from small to a bigger number. So it follows that pattern. So I'm thinking that we're set up in the right order. So with the first 2 terms, I can pull out a factor of a 3 and a b squared. Looking at the next 2 terms, if this is positive, you want to pull out a positive. So we're definitely going to pull out something positive. And I can pull out a factor of 4 from both of these. Okay, and now what happens is we get 3b minus 5 in brackets, 3b minus 5 in brackets. It's kind of like this example where we had 2 things in brackets the exact same. So I can pull that thing out, pull that out, and then write what the leftovers are, 3b squared plus 4. And that is our final answer. Okay, on the next page again, we start with 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to try to do factor by grouping. So it goes small to big, small to big. So I'm thinking it's a good order. So in the first 2, I can pull a factor of 2 out and a factor of x squared. With the second 2, I can pull a factor of 5 out. And then again, we get the same thing in brackets, so factor that out. Okay, and then that is our final answer. Now looking at this next one, I can see it only has 1, 2, 3 terms. So again, always check to see if there's something you can pull out from all 3 terms. In this case we can't. But when we have 3 terms, the method we're going to use is called the product sum method. So we're going to have to use the product and the sum. The word product means multiply, the word sum means add. And what we want to do is we want to find the product of the first number and the last number. So let's go 1 times negative 42. Okay, so we want to get a product of negative 42, and we want to get a sum of the middle number, which is just a hidden 1. Okay, so we want to find 2 numbers. They're going to multiply to negative 42, but they are going to sum up to 1. So you can go through, think about all your factors. The 2 that are going to work for this, though, are a 7 and a negative 6. because 7 times negative 6 is negative 42, and 7 plus negative 6 is 1. Okay, now once we have those two factors, because this is the easy type where the number in front is just a 1 here, we can immediately break it down into an x plus a 7 and a x minus 6. Okay, now looking at number 7, again it's got 3 terms, so I'm thinking it's going to be product sum. Got to check and see if there's something I can pull out from all 3 terms. In this case I can't. So then I'm going to move on to my product and my sum. So my product is the first number, hidden 1, times the last number, negative 24. That'd give me negative 24. And the sum is the middle number there, negative 5. And it also includes the y. And I also missed the y squared on this one. Y squared. The variable in this case that we are looking at is x. So it goes x squared, just an x, and then no x's. Just like how this one had that form, it went c squared, c, and then no c's. So anything that is not an x is the middle kind of term. And then in this last one, there's no x's, so that whole thing is the last term. Okay, so we want to get two numbers. They're going to multiply to negative 24, but they're going to sum up to negative 5y. Now the way I think about this is kind of pretend like these y's aren't here and just look at the numbers, and then it makes the problem a whole lot easier. So try to find two numbers that multiply to negative 24 and they sum up to negative 5. Okay, so those two numbers are going to be negative 8 and 3. Okay, and then just add y's onto these, and then we can see negative 8 plus 3y is negative 5y, and negative 8y times 3y is negative 24y squared. Okay, so now we can just break it apart into our two factors. So we got x minus 8y and x plus 3y. On to number 8. So looking at this one, I can see that there's a factor that all of these have, so we want to pull that out first. So I can pull a factor of 2 out. Okay, now with these three terms, I want to try to do my product and my sum. So the product is 1 times negative 8, that last term. And then the sum is the middle number, it's just a 2. So we want to find two numbers, multiply to negative 8, sum up to 2. Okay, and those two numbers are a 4 and negative 2. Moving along to number 9. Again, there's common terms I can pull out. Let's pull out the 2. And we do our product and our sum. Product is 1 times 20, so that's 20. Sum is negative 9. Two numbers that multiply to 20 and sum up to negative 9 are negative 5 and negative 4. Okay, looking at number 10 now. This one, there's nothing common between all of the terms that I can pull out, so I'm going to go straight to my product and my sum. Product now is 3 times negative 14. Okay, and then the sum is that middle number, negative 19. So two numbers that multiply to negative 42 and sum up to negative 19 are negative 21 and 2. Now with this one, because that first term is not a 1, like these were, it was a 1 here, and with this one there was a 1 here, and same with this one, there was a hidden 1 here. But with this one, when it's not a 1, we had a different method that we had to use. So I'm going to use the factor by grouping method on this one, and then I'm going to do it in some of the other questions down below here. I'm going to do it another way. So what we do is we break apart this middle term, negative 19b, into the two factors that we just found. Okay, so negative 19b broke down into minus 21 and a plus 2b. If I put those back together, it would just give me this. Okay, and now because we got four terms, I do factor by grouping. These two as a group, these two as a group. Okay, and then I get the same thing in brackets, so we can factor that out. And that there is my final answer. Now with number 11 here, there's no terms that I can pull out from all three, so we're going to have to start again with that product and the sum. So product is 6 times negative 14. And that's going to give us negative 84. And then the sum is 17. Okay, so looking for two numbers, multiply to negative 84, sum up to 17. Those are 21 and negative 4. Now with this one, I'm going to use a different method. It's going to be called the fraction method. So what we do is we pretend like these two numbers that we just got are the right numbers, okay? But it had a factor of 6 in front, so we can't use like this method where it just broke apart and we were done. What we need to do is we need to do a second step. So let's first write it out where we pretend like they were the right numbers. Okay, but there was a 6 in front, so we need to account for that. We're going to divide each of these by that number. Now with these fractions, what we want to do is we want to simplify those fractions. So divide each of these by a 3 and divide each of these by a 2. And then the very last step, we take, if there's something in the denominator here, it goes up in front of the variable. Same with this one, take the 3 in the denominator, it goes up in front. Next we got number 12. I can see all these terms have an x and all of them are even, so I could pull a 2 out from all of them, so let's do that. Okay, and then with the three terms inside the brackets, we're going to do our product and our sum. The two terms that multiply to 12 and add up to negative 8 are negative 6 and negative 2. And then again, this is the harder type where it's not a 1 in front, so we can either do this factor by grouping method or use the fraction method. Now I'm going to use the fraction method again with this one. Okay, so we write out our numbers and then divide by whatever the term was in front of the y squared. So we got to divide this by a 3. Now looking at what we have, this one, 6 divided by 3 is just going to give us 2. With this one, I can't simplify the fraction, so that 3 is just going to move up in front. Okay, and then that's our final answer. Moving on to number 13. Now this one, the numbers are a little bit bigger. Whenever you guys see one like this, it may be because it's some other special form. Okay, especially if you notice that the numbers, the first and the last there, are perfect squares. So this one is probably going to end up being a perfect square trinomial. So this is a perfect square, this is a perfect square, and then this middle term is going to be 2 times the square root of this one and the square root of this one. So let's write it out and see if that is true. Okay, so if I had 4x squared, that would give me 16x squared, because apply the 2 to the 4, 4 squared is 16, x squared, and then this last number, 7 squared, that's 49, okay? And then what we put in the middle, you're going to bring down the sign, put a 2, and then this one will go there, and then this one will go here. Okay, and just check to make sure that this actually gives you back negative 56. So 2 times 4 is 8, 8 times 7 is 56. Okay, so that does work out. Now if it is of this type, we can immediately break it down into its factors. It's just going to be one set of brackets, and then 4x goes first in both of them, and then the 7 goes second. Okay, and then the sign that we use is this middle sign. So middle sign is middle sign, middle sign. Okay, and then we're done. If you wanted to write this a different way, you could just write it, because I can see it's the same term twice, I could just write it once and then put it with an exponent of 2 to say that there's actually 2 of them. Okay, so that's our answer. Now the next one, we haven't seen one like this, and these last 3 are going to be this type. There are only 2 terms. Now if there's only 2 terms, you want to think that it's going to be the difference of squares. So there's going to be a difference in the middle, so I can see all of these have a difference, and then the first term and the last term should hopefully be perfect squares. So let's write it as a perfect square. Okay, so I can see 2a squared would just give me 4a squared, and then 5 squared would give me 25. So if you can write it like this, with this type, it breaks down into 2 sets of brackets, where the first term goes first, so 2a and 2a, and then that last term, 5, goes second, but in the middle, what we put is a plus and a minus. And the order of the plus and the minus doesn't matter. You could have put the minus here first, or the plus here second, just as long as there's a plus in one and a minus in the other. Okay, and then that's our final answer. Number 15 now, I can see both of these have a factor of 2, so pull out the 2. Okay, so again, I'm trying to think it's going to be a difference of squares. So let's write it as that. Okay, so x squared, 4y squared just gives me 16y squared. So it is a difference of squares. And then we can just write out our 2 sets of brackets. Put the first term first in both, the second term second, and then a plus and a minus in both. Okay, and then that one's done. Finally, we're on our last question here. So again, just 2 terms, difference in the middle. We're going to try to write this term and this term as a square. Okay, so we got the first one as a perfect square. 3y squared just gives me the 9y squared. With the second one, it's a fraction, but I know 25 I could write as 5 squared, and 16 I could write as 4 squared. Then what we're going to do is, rather than having them both be having their own square, we're going to give them just one common square between the both of them. Okay, so now they share this one common square, and I can see this will be my second term. So now that I have that, we're going to draw out our two brackets. 3y goes first in both, and the 5 over 4 goes second, and a plus and a minus. Again, order doesn't matter. And we're finished. Okay, so hopefully that helped some of you guys if you couldn't quite get maybe all of the answers to some of the questions or you missed kind of little steps. Hopefully that helped you out.